Ukraine shot down a Russian military cargo plane, and we take a look at the net change of territorial control all across the line of contact in 2023, which was zero for all of the death and destruction, offensives and counteroffensives at the end of the year. One more year of fighting between Ukraine and Russia, and the net territorial control hasn't really changed at all in the past 12 months. We talk about what that means and more. Let's go ahead and get into it. I'm recording this at 1:30 p.m. Central on Wednesday, January 24th, 2024. As I'm recording this, there's reports coming in alongside some footage that I'll share of a Russian cargo plane crashing in Russia. There were some images coming out. Again, very hard to discern what's accurate at this point. The information space is very loud, very messy. But it looks like, based off some of these photos, that the plane did sustain damage that could have been caused by a surface-to-air missile, suggesting that it was shot down and it didn't just crash. The only thing for certain at this point is that that plane definitely crashed based off the footage we have available. Competing claims between the two sides, and this is probably going to continue for a while. It's nothing new in this conflict, but I would caution we're probably not going to have the full picture of what actually played out here for quite a while. So as of now, as of this recording, what has been put out, Russia's Ministry of Defense said that the plane was carrying 65 captured Ukrainian military personnel en route to a prisoner exchange. There was a prisoner exchange plan for earlier today, so that's not, completely out of thin air. They're saying that that was related to that planned event. Ukraine put out that the plane was transporting missiles for Russia's S-300 air defense system and did not say anything about the plane carrying their own POWs for that prisoner exchange. Again, very early here. Wait for more information to come out before really understanding exactly what happened in this situation. Now, looking at the last couple days, we continue to see significant Russian bombardments of Ukrainian cities. Russia launched an aerial attack on Ukraine Tuesday, striking 3 cities with roughly 40 missiles. So we have seen a pretty significant uptick in the last probably 1 to 2 months in terms of the volume of drone and missile strikes. Not just the frequency, but also the volume, the number of missiles and drones included in each one of these waves has jumped up substantially in the last couple weeks here. They used about 40 missiles in this strike. Ukraine says they were able to shoot down or intercept 21 of those, but the remainder resulted in the death of at least 7 people, wounded more than 60, and destroyed multiple homes and apartment buildings across Ukraine, according to Ukrainian officials. This missile barrage comes just a few days after Russia accused Ukraine of shelling a market in Donetsk, where 27 people were killed and 25 wounded on Sunday, just a couple days ago. Russia's foreign ministry referred to that event as a terrorist attack, and the Ukrainian military has said that they have no involvement whatsoever. All right, and then shifting over to operations on the ground, where according to War Mapper on Twitter, the net territorial change of control on the ground in Ukraine for 2023 was 0.0%. Nothing. It's the exact same. Put another way, Russia controls the exact same amount of territory that they did at the start of 2023 in Ukraine. So that's after the Russian and Wagner gains around Bakhmut. That's after the Ukrainian offensive in the south and the east. That's after Russian advances in November, December. All of that death and destruction. All of those areas of Ukraine that are now not going to be inhabitable for some time, even if the fighting were to stop today, due to the landmines and just the total destruction laid to some of these cities. After all of that, the territorial change of control is nil. Cancels out. Nothing. Now, the fighting has been intense, and it's ongoing. All of this for, again, zero net change in territorial control came at an incredible cost of lives, countless numbers of fathers, sons, brothers, and family members that are no longer coming home. They're no longer with us. And cities that are just completely razed to the ground. I think the takeaway here that should really be hammered home to us is watching this war play out with some of these maps and these trackers to say Ukraine advanced 200 meters here and Russia fell back 500 meters there. That doesn't matter big picture. When you zoom out just a little bit, that doesn't really matter with how this war is going to play out. I understand how it's critically important to the soldiers on the ground. That's what they're fighting for. But territorial control is not what's going to decide this war anytime soon. So I think what this war comes down to, as it likely enters another attritional phase here, is really 2 big picture things, right? And this shouldn't be shocking. People have been talking about this since very early in the conflict, but production capacity and domestic support. So at a high level, production capacity is the making of equipment needed to fight a war. You can't fight a war very well without weapons and ammunition, right? You run out of that stuff, it's going to be a bad day. Domestic support then is not just tied to the public willingness to continue the fight, but also their ability to continually provide soldiers to kind of fill the ranks and actually fight the war. So the production piece is a little more tangible, so a little more easily measured. Russia has that advantage over Ukraine, and they have this entire war. I don't really think that's up for debate. When you're comparing Ukraine to Russia in terms of military production capacity, it's night and day, and it always has been. Now, when you start to factor in Western support, the scales start to shift a little bit, for sure. It gets a little complicated. The challenge there is that it's not the total industrial might of the West against Russia. It's more what we have been and are willing to commit to Ukraine going forward. I've said before that I do think still that the United States and our partners are capable of outproducing Russia. I'm just not sure if that's something that the U.S. and our allied countries around the world are willing to do and pick up on behalf of Ukraine. I think the jury's kind of still out on that one. So overall, stockpiles of weapons, ammunition, equipment, all of that is, of course, a major concern to understanding how this war plays out, which is why I would argue that the most significant aspect of Ukraine's war effort right now is understanding what this external funding looks like and how long it's going to be able to continue. The domestic support piece, a little more squishy. Personal opinion here, I would say that Ukraine has more of a reason to fight. They're defending their homeland. They're defending their homes and their families. That counts for something. You can't discount that. However, Russia does have a significant advantage in available manpower, and the war isn't being fought really on Russian territory, which it makes it a lot easier for the Russian population to kind of keep this out of mind day in and day out. Now, I know there's some nuance there of Russia now has claimed ownership of some territories in Ukraine, so you could nitpick and say, well, it technically is being fought in Russian-controlled territory, but in terms of the bulk of the population in Russian territory pre-February 2022, the war is not being fought there. It's not really day in and day out affecting those folks the same as it is affecting Ukrainian citizens all across the country. So that domestic support piece is something that's really hard, if not just impossible to measure in the moment. Now, if that were to drastically decline support for one side or the other, that could lead that side to try to seek out some sort of negotiated settlement. But again, we're really comparing apples to oranges here when talking about support for the war between Ukraine and Russia. And it's not something that I would feel very comfortable right now saying that either side has a notable advantage in. So the war in Ukraine rages on with no real end in sight. I think it's pretty clear right now that neither side is interested in sitting down at the negotiating table. Ukraine is in a tough spot right now, as U.S. funding specifically has dried up. And we're not exactly sure what that'll look like going forward. And it may be harder to come by, depending on how some elections play out here in the United States. But, for now at least, Ukraine's on the defensive. They're able to hold those lines relatively effectively, given what they have on hand. And again, I would not expect a significant decrease in the fighting across the line of contact anytime soon. But that's all I got for now. Of course, if interested in any of this or other national security subjects, be sure to check out my Substack. Link is in the description below. We're starting to put together more detailed, in-depth articles that are complementary to the subjects I talk about in these videos for free. They're available to everyone. So I think they're going to be a really good value. Go check them out if interested. But thanks for watching. I'll see y'all next time.